Today on the podcast, we have another twofer. My good pal, Mark Bryant, a legend in the SBA space, is officially retiring, so he says, and he's passing the baton to his predecessor, Jordan Hallam, who stepped into the director role over there at SouthState Bank on January 1st. So I wanted to have both of them on so that we can try to extract just a little bit of all that wisdom that Mark gained over his 30-plus year career in SBA lending, as well as discuss what Jordan's plans are for the department going forward. So stick around. Thank you guys for joining me on this. I'm really excited to do it. It's going to be good. Now I'm going to start with Mark. You're not really retiring, right?
It's a head fake. I'm going to come back as a Chippendale Dancers next, the senior tour they've got out there. I'm going to join that. I'm not really retiring, but I'm retiring in October after 30 some odd years of SBA lending. It's time to, go do some other things in life that don't involve work. So looking forward to it.
I wouldn't believe you if it wasn't for the beard, but the beard means you're serious. So, and then Jordan,
I didn't think about that.
You're taking over, yeah, right? You guys are at the SouthState Bank, and Jordan's stepping up to the plate, and you're the director now going forward.
Yes, sir. Yeah, as of January 1st. Yep.
Very cool. So that's interesting. I want to really talk about that because I've never had anyone on the podcast that's together. Kind of, it's almost like you're passing the baton to Jordan here at this bank. But Mark, your background is so. You have a great reputation. Everyone likes you. I have heard nothing but good things about you. Your background is so long that you didn't even bother to fill out your whole LinkedIn. It just says various lending institutions for 25 years. And then there's like another, 6 years on top of that at South State, 7 years, something like that. When you came into South State, did you start it from scratch, the SBA division?
I did. Yeah. And I left it that way on LinkedIn. So it kind of covers up all the places I got fired at through the years. I think it's 23 or so, but I'm kidding. But no, when I started, what was Center State is now South State in 2016. They had never originated any SBA loans, and so starting it up from scratch and great opportunity. The fifth place that I'd started up SBA shop going back to 1991 or so. So it's a lot of fun. I've enjoyed it. Been a great group and great way to going out on top. So I can't complain.
Wow, so you started 5 different SBA shops over the years.
I did. It's funny looking back. I was telling somebody this a few weeks ago. If you look at the jobs I've had, I think there's 9 total in SBA lending. Four mergers in there, kind of force you out the door. I'm 0 for 4 on mergers, by the way. When a bank comes in and buys us, and me sticking around, it just hadn't worked out. Been great opportunities, but went in a different direction. But I've gone, pretty much sequentially from starting running an SBA shop and then being a loan officer for, next step. And then that comes to an end for whatever reason, then back to starting and running an SBA shop, and that comes to an end, then going to being a loan officer. And I think part of it is they're both fun. They're both great jobs, totally different in terms of responsibilities and expectations. And so you do one, I've done one for a while, and that comes to an end, and I'll go do something different, kind of flip between the two. But both great jobs, and enjoyed every second of it, and been at some great places. So met a lot of people at the recent Southeast Small Business Lending Conference, and I was looking at the list of attendees, and out of I think it's like 140 bankers on there, I had worked with, I think there's 36 of them at different places over the past few years. And so you get to know a lot of people, and it's just a great group of people, and gonna miss that part.
Yeah, no, it's a great industry. I mean, we're really lucky to have fallen into this. But geez, 5 shops, us younger guys, and Jordan here has taken over. There's a lot that I'm sure you've learned, and you've probably taught Jordan some of this. I want to learn some of it too, selfishly. But like, when you're starting shops and you're building the shops and hiring BDOs, and did you hire Jordan as a BDO, or was he already at the bank?
He came from a merger, and so we hired him at that point. And Jordan had an option to go into conventional lending at the bank, or into SBA lending, and luckily he went the SBA path.
So you're fairly new to SBA.
Not really. I've been doing SBA in one form or fashion for 15 years now. But when our bank got acquired, I was managing what at that time we called our business banking group, which was me and two other people. We were a small but mighty group. And we did all of the SBA for the community bank that I worked for. And we also did some conventional lending on the smaller size conventional deals. And so when we got acquired, at that time it was SouthState Bank. They said, we don't have a business banking department for you to manage. So are you interested in going further down this SBA path, this SBA rabbit hole? We're about to start an SBA department with this guy out of Atlanta. Or do you want to go back to your conventional roots? And so that's when I met Mark and we hit it off. And I thought, you know what, this seems like an intriguing opportunity to kind of, like I said, dive even deeper into SBA. I'd been doing SBA for years at that point, and we were getting a pretty good amount done for a community bank, but I was also still dabbling in conventional. And so this gave me a chance to just 100% focus on SBA, and glad I did. It's been a great run with Mark and SouthState now.
When I joined the bank in 2016, they were $5 billion in assets, and now we're coming up on $50 billion series of mergers. So pretty amazing growth. I understand second fastest growing bank in the country in our peer group, so pretty impressive.
Well, and that's awesome, and you deserve some of the credit for that because I'm sure the
it's
SBA
all because
is
of SBA.
It's a big part of it.
We were the $45 billion gap there.
Jeez. What did you guys do last year for SBA production for 7A? Like 150 million, 200 million?
170.
Yeah, 170 in 7A, and then 504. Forget what we did as a bank, 40 or 50 million, and then some USDA loans. But 7A is about 175, if I recall, 2022.
When you got acquired, when you were at the community bank, Jordan, anytime, like Mark was saying, a lot of people don't survive those mergers, and you I'm sure, you let it happen. You felt it out. You talked to this guy out of Atlanta, Mark, and you ended up sticking around. And it could go either way in those types of situations. What was it about the opportunity that actually made this you sticking around and getting to this point so successful?
That's a great question. I think one of the things that the bank was really smart about when they decided they wanted to start an SBA department was they knew about SBA, and they knew it was, a great line of business, but they weren't sure how to start one, how to grow one. And so that's when they went out and found Mark, and he can, elaborate on that story a lot better than I can. But I think the smartest move they made was they kind of said to Mark, okay, you tell us how to build an SBA department, and we'll fund it, basically. And so rather than them trying to put parameters and guidelines in place of how you start and grow an SBA department, no, you can't have this many underwriters before this. No, they let Mark kind of build it in the image that he thought would be a successful department, and that really did make a big difference in my mind. That, and I think, and Mark and I were just having this conversation the other day, that I think, the initial core group of people we hired are all still with the department. And I think that's been a huge part of our success is finding the right people early on and kind of growing them and developing them. And they're still with the group to this day. And so that's been a big part of our success as well.
So Mark, they listened to you, and it turned out to be successful, and it's still going, right? It's still growing, and it's transition and all that. But is it sometimes banks don't listen to, they bring someone in, but they don't listen, or they have their own ideas? And is that where sometimes it gets a little tricky?
It is. And, you see that and you hear that stories of friends that have known that have gone to SBA or banks and started up SBA, and just the culture wasn't right. The credit philosophy wasn't right. The type of lending we do. Got a friend in SBA lending that describes what we do as scratch and dent lending. He says it's kind of like you go to Home Depot and you go over to that section in the corner where all the things are in the scratch and dent side, that there's something wrong with that. It's got a scratch on it, a gouge or something. In SBA lending, if for no other reason, credit elsewhere rules, there is a scratch or a dent on that loan, and you got to hopefully get the bank comfortable with that it's a wise decision to make and to do the loan. But, that's where we've been fortunate, like Jordan said, that the bank and our relationship with the senior credit leadership at the bank and It's been fantastic, and we've sat there and talked through credit and why it makes sense and why an SBA guarantee makes a loan something that we should do as a bank. So we've been very fortunate on that.
And so you have to like vet that out up front when the bank's in talks to bring over Mark Bryant. Mark Bryant has to vet them just as much as they're vetting you.
Exactly. I remember one conversation, back in the interview process about going 10 years on Goodwill Loans and how from a regular conventional credit perspective, you're not matching the term of the loan with the asset. There's no asset in that case, the useful life of the collateral. And, we went back and forth. And at the end of the discussion, the chief credit officer basically just said, we're in the SBA business and that's how it's done. And so we're going to go up to 10 years on Goodwill loans and, equipment loans, even though that's kind of contrary to what we've learned in conventional credit.
Wow. Yeah, they must have come a long way if that's the discussions you're having at the starting point. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Isn't this ultimately in the directorial, like you're in the people management business, you're managing up, you're managing down, you're managing sideways. I mean, that's really the secret sauce, and that's what you've been really good at, Mark. Like, how important is that as a skill to do what you do?
I think it's important. And, we have a weekly pipeline call, for example, and it's very little of it. 5 minutes is pipeline. The rest of it is training, just any administrative announcements, if an operating notice came out or something like that. But in that, we try to have fun, have a good time. Jordan's running that now. And for example, we had the closers on today doing that call, and they had a quiz and a gift card for the winner at the end. And it's basically just SBA closing rules and requirements. And, first one to give the right answer, got credit for it. And, everybody was jumping in, laughing and having a good time. But they learned from it too. And so that was a great idea. And I think a good example fresh on our mind, because that was just today, of what we do to try to make a fun environment, but where people learn as well.
So it's the culture. This is kind of the key, and that's actually interesting. So you've created this sort of culture, and that brings the team together. And I've seen both ways, because you could have like pretty much a sweatshop type of place, and it's just about production, and nobody turns their cameras on and doesn't have the connections, which are so much harder these days with everyone being remote. So Jordan was telling me before the call, he's changing all that. He's going to go the sweatshop route.
Yeah, it's all about production now. They're just numbers. They're just widgets in the machine now.
No, but seriously, this is interesting. I don't know that many like shops where it's like a transition like this, because no one ever retires from this business. I mean, this is new to me. Are you going to hire BDOs?
Yeah, looking now.
Yeah. You mean, are we going to expand the staff?
Yeah. Like, are you hiring BDOs this year?
We are. Yeah. We've got 4 openings right now.
Really?
Yeah.
All in Florida or Southeast?
No, we're in the Southeast. We're in 6 states, but we'll also hire outside of our footprint as well, if it's the right person, because we do nationwide lending also. So we'll hire outside the 6-state footprint, but primarily our folks are Florida, Georgia, Alabama, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia.
Okay, because Jordan, you've hired loan officers before and folks in previous posts, but I don't know if you've hired like specific SBA BDOs. Maybe you have, but Mark, what can we tell him about what to look for when we're hiring these BDOs?
Well, the key to getting good employees in general, BDOs specifically, as you ask, is hiring good people to start with. If you hire the right people, the likelihood of being successful is much higher than if you don't. And it's tough. I mean, it's hard to get people that are going to fit into your world and produce. And it's tough to get. But that's one of the tricks of it, and that makes it fun, is to interview and want to make sure it fits. That what we do is the same kind of stuff that they do, and vice versa. And the last thing that an employee wants in any position is to have a misstep where they go somewhere and it doesn't work out, and then they've got a spot on the resume that doesn't look like it's worked out very well, that was not successful. And we don't want to have that as an employer, where you bring somebody in and they don't work out and you got to go through all the HR steps of everything. So the key is getting that right person. As large as we are now as an SBA shop, a lot of our new employees come referrals from our current employees, somebody that's worked with somebody in the past, and that has had great success because they know a little bit about the work ethic. They know that they get along. They know that they get along with people. They know that they know their job. And so that's always been one of our keys, I guess, is just leaning on our staff to try to find employees. We pay them a little money for that, for employee referrals within the bank, and so that's been one of the keys to success.
It might sound cliche, but maintaining our team's culture is so vitally important that when I'm interviewing somebody, or back when it was Mark and I interviewing people, that was one of the things we really dug into on every candidate. They could have been somebody who was a great producer, but if we felt like they weren't a right fit or they were going to upset the apple cart in some way, then we probably moved on to a different option. I mean, and that's just been so important to us from day one. And it's really helped build the team that we have, that they all get along well. There's very little, if any, infighting at all. And it's just a harmonious place to be. And that just makes everybody's lives better when you enjoy the people you work with,
Right.
It is. And you alluded to that earlier, Jordan, about how so many people who started with us are still here. And, the specifics of that, the first 5 people we hired back in 2016 and 2017 are not only with us, but they've grown into leadership positions in various spots, credit and closing.
When you're starting these shops over the years, Mark, I'm curious about this. You did the first shop, then you do the second shop. What do you learn when you start a shop that you then bring to the next shop, and you're like, you know what, this time I'm going to make sure I do X? Like, is there any advice that comes to your mind in terms of like starting a shop from scratch?
There is, I guess. Set the expectations to where initially you're going to be 2 steps back before 1 step forward, or 1 step back before 2 steps forward, I guess it is, where it takes a while to set everything up, set processes and loan policies, and getting staff in place. You got to have staff in place to do loans. And so it's going to take a while to get to the point where you're making money. We were fortunate in this gig that, I started in July of 16, I think it was. And in November, we had about a $3.6 million loan that we did that made us profitable that first year, which, something I was proud of. It was kind of a fluke, but at the same time, we take it. But it's going to take a while to grow the department, to get the people and processes in place. And then the other thing is you need to be a little more selective when you're starting out. It could be fatal if you have one of your first loans, say it's a large loan, Biz Act deal, say, and it goes bad. That could be a big thing within your bank. If you have that loss, and if you have a denial or a repair on the guarantee on top of it, that could be fatal. And whether that's fatal immediately and them saying, get your stuff and go, or fatal in that they just get so tight in what they want to do that, you can't get anything done and you can't keep staff. And so I think somebody described it years ago that just because you can do a loan doesn't mean you should do a loan. And so to kind of give it that perspective before signing off on something, because it can come back to haunt you. So just kind of, ease into it. We used what the bank called the crawl, walk, and run approach, where we crawled first and then walk and that in the crawling stage took about a year or so. And then we walked for about a year, and we've been running ever since then, and we'll continue to keep running.
Yeah, I feel like that happens a lot. If a deal goes bad at a bank, isn't like the initial reaction from the bank to say, we don't want to do these anymore?
It is.
Yep.
It is.
Knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. And I've seen that before, and it makes it tough, because you've got new lenders coming on, you've got lenders trying to do deals, and all of a sudden the rules get extremely tight. And I get it from both sides. I understand it from the bank side, but I understand it from the BDO side. But you still got to keep pressing forward and just, do enough loans. But I think the key is just being selective on the front end to answer your specific question about starting something, because you don't want to have that happen in the first couple of years where you have a large loan that goes bad. There's no good that comes out of that.
How do you guys get loans approved at your bank? Is there like a loan committee or credit officers? How's it work?
We've got varying levels of credit authority. We've got two, what we'll call senior underwriters that have credit approval authority. And then we've got a credit administrator who's got up to, I think it's 7 million. So, obviously any 7A loan and some USDA loans he can approve. But at a bank our size, to get to a loan committee, it'd be far in excess of anything that we could do in the SBA world.
So there's not, you don't present SBA deals to a loan committee then?
No, just to the approver themselves. Yep.
That's a huge strength in the market in the SBA world, because that's contrary to most shops.
Okay, put that on the title of our video.
I really only know one other shop, and I mean I don't know every shop, but I know another shop where it's like that. But here where I'm at, and also my last shop, it was like the chief credit officer signed off up to 3 million, and then after that it was a committee. So the bigger deals were always had to be a little bit more buttoned up, we'll say, because they're going to the committee. Although, granted, it wasn't like the formal committee where you have to go into like a boardroom and present a deal like I had to do when I worked at a bank, which was like the worst, which I had to do it on the phone. But even it was so formal, I had to wear a suit on the phone and they couldn't even see me. This was before Zoom. And it was rough because you're sitting there and you're like reading, it's like you're reading the memo. You're like the BDO. And a lot of my buddies have to do this on deals that are honestly quite small, like 1.5 million size, maybe even they're going to committee for that. It's very rough. And it's pointless because you're kind of just saying, you're reading, it's like, it's all in the memo, right? Can't you just read the memo and make a decision? So I think those committees are going to go extinct eventually in the SBA world.
I hope so. It just slows everything down. I remember working years ago at a small bank in Atlanta where you had to have a loan package ready on Wednesday to go to the loan committee the next Tuesday. It had to be done, not mostly done, but all the way done, or you skipped a week. And so that's helped us on our efficiencies, having, like Jordan said, multiple people on the team that just do SBA and government lending credit. That's all they do. But they have authority to where they can approve all the SBA loans that we get with their $7 million approval authority, and really speeds up the process.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it is nuts. So Jordan, what's the big priority for you going into this year? What are we thinking?
Well, we need to get the staffing level right size. So we got to get some of these, we call them relationship managers, BDOs, essentially. Got to get them staffed. We're good on credit and closing side in terms of staffing, but we're in an unusual spot where I feel like we've got more underwriters and closers than we do lenders. So we need to get that. We need to get that staffing
Really?
right. And then it's getting these new technologies that we were alluding to earlier on the call, getting some of those implemented and rolled out, hopefully creating some efficiencies from those. The one we're looking at is a nice end-to-end solution that hopefully is a better experience for the borrower, the RM, the closer, everybody in the process. So getting that rolled out and getting everybody trained on that. Those are kind of the first, I guess, two big initiatives this year. And then for me personally, it's just kind of getting my head wrapped around everything that comes along with the role. There's, like I said, Mark did a great job of giving me insight into all this, but there's still stuff that, you don't know what you don't know. And I'm learning stuff as I go every day. And so just getting up to speed on all these various requirements of the position.
Is everyone working remote these days?
We've got a mix. We've got some folks that go into branches or loan production offices, and but for the most part, all of our back office is remote. But some of our lenders are, in a branch every single day, working side by side with commercial lenders, because we get a lot of internal referrals. So they do a good job of mining those and, kind of becoming a part of their local teams.
I like the remote stuff. Don't get me wrong. We're remote. Everyone's remote, right? I find it very tough to build a company, build a culture with the remote. The more I think about it, I mean, I learned, like, how would you bring in someone brand new into the industry in a remote setting? It's really difficult. And then also when you put the culture thing on top of it, it's possible. I mean, we're doing it, you're doing it, but I feel like it makes it more challenging, everyone being spread out like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's why at the most recent conference, I think we had 16 attendees from just our group, because we thought how often do we all get to see each other face to face? Let's get as many as we can up there and have a dinner together. And those kind of things help build that chemistry and that rapport among teammates rather than just Zoom calls, you know?
Yeah. So you think getting together in person is important?
It is. I wholeheartedly feel that way. Yeah. We try to look for opportunities whenever we can to get the team together. It's hard, you know, right now we're up to 55 employees or something like that. So getting all 55 together is not really realistic. But when we can carve out chances, you know, recently we had a managers meeting in Atlanta, and some of our folks who live nearby, we invited them to come in for a bowling event that night. Just opportunities to try and get people face to face whenever we can. We look for those.
Yeah. Well, Mark, you've always been big on that. You've always brought folks out to those conferences.
I am proud of them and get them a chance to get exposure, learn some things, and like Jordan said, get to know each other. The last all SBA meeting we had was right before COVID. It was a month before COVID kicked in. Matter of fact, we had one or two people get COVID while it was there. Yes, at least that's their claim. They were the first round of COVID back in late February. Yeah. 2020, but you know, I think we had 25 people or so, and all went down to Orlando. And I still hear about that from people on the team, you know, once every month or so, about what a great 3 days that was to spend with the team, and it was fantastic. And I hope we do that again now that we're, you know, past COVID. Like, even though, like Jordan said, getting 55 people together someplace is tough, and place that can accommodate that many and give us a place to do the meetings and everything, but hopefully we will.
Yeah, I agree. It's important, and you know, it's tough too with some of the budgetary concerns around doing something like that. But I do believe it's a good investment in when your whole business is people, you know, and them working together. You would think getting them together should be pretty high up there on the priority list. And so I did see that with that list, because I was at that conference too, and I was just like, everything was like SouthState all the way down. That's awesome. Man, Mark, how many years? 30 years?
1991. So a long time.
Man, and looking back, like, we got to kind of go through some of this before I let you guys go, because, you know, like I said, you have a great reputation in the industry. Everyone likes you. You've helped a lot of people along the way. And I'm just curious what's sticking out to you. I want to kind of do a highlight reel and some of the highlights throughout the career, some of the highs, some of the things that stand out, going back to, I mean, the early 90s when SBA was really getting hot, all the way down to the Great Recession where things were not. What stands out?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is PPP and what we as a SBA nation did, from, you know, Department of Treasury, SBA, the lending world, the, you know, vendors, the accountants, CPAs, attorneys, and everybody, you know, what they did coming in, you know, in that environment that we were in, just doing as many loans and keeping as many businesses afloat that we did as a collective group. I think that'll always be, you know, the highlight of most of our careers. And, you know, I know in SBA lending, we doing loans, you know, just talking about regular 7A loans through the years, you take a lot of pride in helping the entrepreneurs grow their business and open up a new location. It was a whole different thing during PPP, because you were keeping the business open. You weren't helping them go from 7 Burger Kings to 8 Burger Kings. You were helping the business stay open and them employ the people, the employees of theirs. And that was, to me, will be the highlight. SouthState will be up there, and the experiences that we've had there, just a great way to go out. It's just been a lot of fun. The people, you know, thinking about the people, and, you know, my girlfriend at that time, wife now, went to, you know, SBA conferences with me for years, and she likes to go and do the spas and all those kind of things, the parties. And remember the first one she went to for the Georgia crowd, the old Lake Oconee Ritz-Carlton conferences that they had. And, you know, the day we were leaving, she was kind of talking about how, you know, in her industry, there's no way that she would go to, some conference, say, and hang out with the competition. Coca-Cola doesn't go to a bottling conference and hang out with the Pepsi people and chit chat. The UPS people and the FedEx don't hang out. But here we are as SBA lenders doing that at the conference, staying up and telling stories and laughing and joking and having a good time. And it's just a camaraderie within the industry itself. And I think a big part of it is, we all know that it's not easy, and there's a sense of respect for somebody who can make a career in SBA and have a reputation as doing it right. There's a sense of respect and admiration for them, and that will be a memory and a highlight that I'll always have. Just what a great group of people.
I mean, that's well said. I'm curious, when folks are coming to you now for SBA loans, I'm talking borrowers, are they looking at the SBA any different now post PPP?
I'll let Jordan answer that. I'll start the answer, I guess, with the statistics that I heard from the local SBA office. And it's off a little bit. I don't remember exactly, but it said that in a conference a year ago that something like before PPP, 15% of small business owners had ever had an SBA loan. And after PPP, it was up to like 85%. And just the awareness and the knowledge of SBA went through the roof, that whole process. And I think there's a lot of leverage off of that. There's a lot of small business owners that remember SBA favorably from the PPP experiment and the time frame there and the success there. And so, I think there's a lot more exposure, awareness, and knowledge when you knock on the door and tell somebody that, you're so-and-so from such and such a bank and you do SBA loans. There's a sense of awareness now that wasn't there before, and that's a great thing. So, Jordan, what do you think?
I would just piggyback on that. The term I was going to use was brand awareness. There's a lot more brand awareness now for SBA. I mean, 3 years ago, if you told somebody you were in SBA lending, 1 out of 5 might, oh, okay, I'm familiar with that. Now it's 5 out of 5, because even if they didn't get a PPP loan themselves, they read about it in the news. They heard it on the news every day. I mean, it just increased our brand awareness exponentially. Ray, I'm sure you experienced the same thing. I also think it built a lot of goodwill for the SBA program just in general. There was always this perception or this, misconception that SBA was a lender of last resort. And now here it kind of came in as this, knight in shining armor to help the country out in one of the worst periods we had ever faced. And so now I think there's a lot of goodwill for SBA from that. So I don't know that we'll ever know, the extent of how much PPP helped going forward, not just in that moment when everybody was trying to scramble and figure out what was happening, but just going forward. I don't know that we'll ever fully appreciate the extent of how much it helped our industry.
May I play devil's advocate?
Please.
Has anyone asked you to get their 7A loans forgiven? And also why they're asking underwriting questions when, they got a PPP loan in like 3 days?
I can't say personally I've ever had either of those. I'm sure somebody's come across it, but personally I never experienced that. I don't know that I heard anybody on my team say that either.
I'm just saying they were giving out a lot of money these last couple of years and a lot of forgiveness going around. Student loans forgiven, PPP loans forgiven. Idle loans, don't worry about paying us for like a year, and then when you do pay us, it's like insane terms. And then so I got all that, and now I got the 7A loan. Rate just went up. Economy's pulling back a little bit. Things are getting a little hard. Do I really need to pay this? Government can take care of that for me, right? That's what I'm getting at, right? Like, what if that is the next chapter of all of this? You
just got to remind them that this is actually a bank loan that the government's guaranteeing. This isn't government debt to be forgiven.
Just a quick little reminder there.
Easy,
you should put it into the commitment letter or something.
Slide it in there.
Yeah, see this promissory note? This means you have to pay us back.
We made it this time.
Oh, boy. No, I agree, though. It was overall like a really good thing. And look, yeah, I agree. That's something we'll be talking about for years. I mean, we saved, the country. We saved the country, basically, in a nutshell, because small businesses, we know, employ half the folks in the country, and they were shut down. And you were looking at mass layoffs across the board if we didn't do something. And ultimately, I think they did a pretty good job. And we had some long nights, and a lot of folks worked really hard in our industry, and we should be really proud of that. So I think that's a great answer, Mark. Fellas, I will let you go. This was good. I appreciate you guys jumping on. I really wish you success in this transition. Jordan's taken the baton now and he's going to run with it, and he's already running with it. Mark's a consultant now. And Mark, are you going to do any
chief consultant?
Are you going to do any consulting after this, like after your consulting agreement with the bank?
I don't know. I think my goal first is to be grandfather of the year the next 10 years, and I'll let everything else sort out from there.
Ray, I have a feeling we'll still see him kicking around at the SBA conferences 20 years from now with his walker going around getting free barbecue seasoning from Memphis Capital.
I hope so.
It is going to be, I can imagine it's going to be tough. I mean, you go to those things, everyone. I mean, you literally worked with 36 of them, but you probably know all of them. And it is nice. It's like when you go there, it's like a little homecoming reunion every year. And I would miss that. So you're welcome anytime, Mark, All
right. Thank you. I'll take you up on that. That'll be fun. Thank you.
All right. Good, gentlemen. I will talk to you later then. Thank you for joining.
All right. Thank you, Ray.
All right, that's it for this week. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode of The Art of SBA Lending. And if you have any feedback or suggestions, email me at ray@artofsba.com. Until next time, ta-ta.